Coco gets shot on the corner. Coco loses his guitar. He goes to the hospital. Don't you feel bad for Coco? It's really getting you upset. You know, Coco's not out there going to go get to meet his grandfather across the magic bridge of petals. Come on.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down to Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, then this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me are my co-hosts, Ash El Mariachi Buscemi.
Hi, y'all.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you like to see all the movies we have covered, we'll cover one, and choose one for yourself. Please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all our information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, to hang out with us live, follow and subscribe to our Twitch channel, shatpod.com/Twitch, and our YouTube channel, where we play video games, host watch parties, edit this podcast live, and have a mailbag edition coming live on May 8th. All of that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing tonight?
Gene, I know I say it often about our commissioners, how great it is that they support us and they stay with us for years. Tonight's commissioner, Rachel C., is a perfect example. She's been with us since 2020. And to my best accounting here, it looks like she has commissioned, this is her 5th movie. She did Tequila Sunrise. She did Father of the Bride, The Grifters, Great Expectations, and tonight's was a Choose Your Own Adventure. She was kind enough. She gave us a list of some options. We came back with the film that we will be reviewing tonight, and it was the 1995 neo-Western Desperado.
You know, one thing I've noticed about our listeners, Rachel in particular, is they have this eclectic pool of film that they like, which I really, really appreciate. No one's got like a niche that they do other than, I guess, Hot Sauce Steve really, really likes the early 2000s. But everybody else seems to be like, hey, we're going to give you a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I mean, the gap between Tequila Sunrise and, let's say, The Grifters, I mean, those are very, very, very different movies. Sexy in their own way. And then giving us the freedom to do our own, particularly Desperado. I can't say enough about how much I appreciate Rachel's commissions.
Yeah, and Rachel was kind enough, and she phoned in a message to tell us why this movie's commissioned and her thoughts on it. So let's hear it from Rachel.
Hi, this is Rachel C. from Milwaukee. I hope I'm not too late to give you a little context regarding my Desperado commission. Honestly, I think I gave you guys a slate of movies to choose from: Bound, Out of Sight, Loverboy, I think, and there were a couple others, and you selected Desperado. Great choice. Antonio Banderas, Salma Hayek, so hot. And I just remember it being really funny, stylistic, just a cool, different movie at the time. So I hope you guys enjoy it this time around. I also still think I owe you for Thelma and Louise, and now that Ash is back, yay, that could be really interesting. So I have to get that payment in. And you had sort of been not excited about the haunted honeymoon idea I proposed a while back as well. Did I mention Dom DeLuise in drag, if that sweetens the pot? Anyway, I really do love you guys. As you know, it's been a rough year for me, and truly your podcast just brings me some escapism and some welcome laughs. So thank you again. Bye.
Well, Rachel, I hope we can give you those laughs on this episode. And I'm so glad you brought up what we would think about Desperado this time around. Those are some key words here, because I think all three of us going into this thought, wow, Desperado, hell yeah, I love that movie. And I discovered some things about this movie and myself on this viewing. Desperado was released in 1995, co-produced, edited, and directed by Robert Rodriguez. It is the second part of Rodriguez's Mexico trilogy and stars Antonio Banderas as El Mariachi, who seeks revenge on the drug lord who killed his lover. The film was screened at the 1995 Cannes Film Festival and grossed $58 million worldwide. So Big D, Ash, we always ask what your memories are of the film. We've heard what Rachel thinks of it. Big D, how about you?
So I worked at Blockbuster, as I've discussed many times before, and on the new release wall, you would have the big Blockbuster like tentpole summer films that were like 5 or 6 rows, and then you would have the little like individual single rows, and they were kind enough where they would get us to have the employee section. These were films that weren't that big, and even though you said this made $58 million, this wasn't quite like Speed or some of the bigger films like even like Pulp Fiction around this time. It was on there, and the cover looked interesting. So I remember I went in, I watched it. I thought it was good, but going back, more importantly, this was my introduction to Salma Hayek. And the next year she came out, Dusk Till Dawn. She was with Robert Rodriguez again. So my memory of this was the first taste of a young, fresh-faced Salma Hayek, and that's what stuck with me, along with some of the action, which we'll get into here. But I was excited to go back and watch it again.
Yeah, I watched this for the first time when I was in middle school. I think I was in 8th grade. I can't remember exactly, but I watched it on a sleepover at Melanie Faust's house, and I loved it. I had fallen down a Tarantino rabbit hole by that point, so I had done Pulp Fiction and I had watched Reservoir Dogs. Once that rabbit hole started, it immediately like intersected with Robert Rodriguez's, rabbit hole, because the two of them were so intertwined at this time. And so I believe I watched this one after From Dusk Till Dawn, but from the first watch, I just absolutely was obsessed with it and Antonio Banderas and the style, the way that he shoots his movies. And I love this film, and I was really excited to go back and watch it.
I can't stress enough how much word of mouth mattered back then, like in the mid 90s, Ash. So I was in the same boat as you. I was watching every Tarantino thing I could get my hands on. And then Desperado was described to me as like a Mexican Quentin Tarantino movie. And I was sold. So Pulp Fiction had come out the year before. I couldn't get enough of this style of film. And back then, I did think that this felt a lot like Tarantino. I was like, oh yeah, I get it. I see it totally. But in 2024, on this watch, I saw some big differences between Rodriguez and Tarantino. And I really am excited to get into that on this episode.
Yeah, because Pulp Fiction came out and it was something so new. The crime drama, the noir, the dialogue. And, Tarantino and Rodriguez, famously good friends. They've collaborated quite a bit. They met at one of the panels, and I think we were so desperate. We want more Tarantino that maybe we were a little generous going back on this watch and where their careers went. But at the time, they were mentioned in the same breath.
But it was a little bit more than that. I remember at this time, there was also this fascination, like there was kind of this Mexico resurgence in a sense. Los Lobos was like really big and people were like buying those CDs, which ties in with next week's movie as well. And so I remember that there was that impact on me as well, where it was like, hey, this is kind of the zeitgeist of the mid 90s and made it even more appealing, not to mention the inescapable sex appeal of the cast. So this one's muy caliente. Let's hit the trailer.
I was visiting a bar, and in he walked. You saw his face? His face? No. I mean, every step he took towards the light, just when you thought his face was about to be revealed, it wasn't. It was as if the lights dimmed, just for him.
They called him a loner.
I know who you are.
Really?
You kill drug dealers.
I killed the woman I loved. You ruined my life.
They called him a miss.
You've heard stories of that man that carries the guitar case full of weapons. Find him and kill him.
I hope you don't think you can take someone like Ucho all by yourself.
Really?
They made the mistake of calling his bluff.
Is there something in the guitar case? My guitar?
Now, it's time to face the music.
Let's play.
Desperado, the new film from Robert Rodriguez.
Steve Buscemi wakes El Mariachi from a dream of his encounter with a man named Moko, who killed his lover and shot his left hand. And he tells El Mariachi to continue searching for Moko's boss, Bucho. El Mariachi meets a child and gives the boy some guitar lessons before engaging in a tense standoff with Bucho's henchmen, followed by a massive barroom gunfight. El Mariachi kills everyone in the bar but Tavo, who follows El Mariachi outside and wounds him before being shot down. Carolina, a woman whom El Mariachi shielded from Tavo's bullets, takes him to her bookstore. Bucho arrives at the bar and orders his men to hunt down the man dressed in black.
So the movie starts off, and I love the way they introduce, I think they call him the stranger. They don't call him Il Mariachi. At this point, we hear him through Steve Buscemi's story. And I know here you gave him a name.
El Mariachi?
No, Buscemi.
No, he's just Buscemi.
Okay, good. I thought I was crazy because the subtitle said Buscemi. So I'm like, all right, it is Buscemi, right? So Buscemi, he's telling the guys in the bar and the bartender, he's trying to get information out of them. And he's building up this legendary character, his abilities. And before we even meet him, he's mysterious. He's always in the shadow. The light seems to dim around him. He drinks sodas. He only speaks in whispers. And obviously it's an embellishment because he calls him the biggest Mexican. You know, and that's not true. So we're not seeing what the story is, but I'm hooked. You have to see what this guy can do. He comes in with the guitar case, the wild weapons. Usually you meet the character and we'll slowly see their badass abilities. And then we go from there as they're on like their mission or whatever it is. Here, he is a legend from the moment we meet him, and it had me hooked.
Yeah, I mean, give me Steve Buscemi pretty much anytime. The beginning of this, he's so goofy looking and what he's saying is so ridiculous that it just sells the story in an incredibly unique way. And the tall tale aspect is especially like the fact that that's being told in this bar, which is like this rundown, like dive bar in Mexico with all these people in there. And then you've got this nerdy, like bug-eyed white guy who's telling the story to them. Like it could not have been set up in any more perfect way than we have it here.
Was anyone else kind of shocked to see like a mid-30-year-old Steve Buscemi? That was so weird because he has this weird thing where no matter what role I think back on, like if you're like, remember Billy Madison? And I go, yeah, Steve Buscemi was like, what, 60 years old in that or something? No. Or remember Desperado? I'm like, yeah, he was like 60 years old in that, right? No. I always imagine him playing each role at his current age, which is now 66. But here he's baby-faced. Like you said, Ash, bug-eyed, very charming.
As baby-faced.
Well, it's an ugly baby, but it's still a baby face. He's just adorable.
Yeah, he really is. And he brings something incredibly unique to every role that he's in. Like I think about like The Big Lebowski, right? Like The Big Lebowski would not have been the movie it was if he wasn't playing the straight man in that. He's in Billy Madison for all of 5 minutes. And legit, he's one of the things most people remember him in that red lipstick, you know, after he calls him.
Not just that, he's got his own like Billy Madison fanfic and like theories and stuff.
Yeah, he like connects the worlds, right? Yeah. He's just an incredibly charismatic guy on screen. And I think the 90s gave us that. They gave us these like random character actors that I don't know if they would become famous today in the world and the Hollywood of now. And certainly that is true of Quentin Tarantino, because we've got a babyface Steve Buscemi for sure, but you talk about a babyface little Tarantino in this bar scene. And I love a Tarantino cameo. I love how neurotic he is. I love the cadence of his voice and the way that he talks, because he's someone on screen that I think is fascinating, but in real life, you'd be like, I fucking hate that guy, right? Like I would never, ever want him around. And then when you put him up against like Cheech in this bar, like their chemistry just works in a way that's really hilarious. And for me, Tarantino is not like the strongest actor that's ever existed, but his facial expressions are like second to none. And when they walk into that bathroom that's covered in shit, and then that secret little door opens, and like the way that his face reacts, it's just gold.
See, I think I shit on Tarantino when we did Dusk Till Dawn, that he's not a good guy, that there's stories about him in Hollywood, and that, you know, he's kind of a dick. So I always come in with that knowledge that my view is going to be skewed in a way. But you talk about Buscemi, I don't ever remember Tarantino looking like a normal, actual human being. Today, he looks like Palpatine. He looks like he's used his evil powers and his skin is saggy and his hair is over the top. Here, he looked like a normal guy. You could see he's odd, he's strange, he's a little cocky, he's playing himself again. He's got some dumb joke he's got to tell, but he was not the Tarantino of today.
Before anybody writes in or calls in and, talks about living in glass houses and stuff, like, we're not the best looking people in the world. Okay, I accept that. Like, I am wearing an oversized t-shirt. I just got out of the gym. I'm wearing silkies. I'm wearing Ranger shorts right now and like sandals. Like that's what's going on at Casa de Jean right now. So this is not by any means trying to pick on Steve Buscemi or pick on Quentin Tarantino. It's just comparing their eras, right? And also just features about them. I think Steve Buscemi is very nice to look at. Like, he's a very interesting looking person, but this is going to be that episode. We're going to talk about how some people look real good and some people not so much. I thought you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, I do too.
I am, but I think if he was let's just say he was a more traditional looking character, a more of just a round town guy you would see, he would not be in these roles. He would not have had the career. I think his looks adds to his character. He's unique. He's an oddball. And that time frame, you needed the oddball, and Buscemi filled it. If he was more traditionally handsome, he is gone.
Well, I mean, likewise, if Tarantino wasn't a director, I don't think he'd be in pictures, if you know what I mean.
No.
But Ash, I got to differ on this one. I think Tarantino in Pulp Fiction, great. He's fine. I really love that scene in Pulp Fiction where he calls the wolf and all that. That's great. But there was this part of Desperado where Tarantino's telling a joke. It's whatever. It's fine. But then he's trying to act like he's drinking piss warm beer. And I felt like I was watching bad improv where, like, okay, give me a noun, a piss warm beer, and an action. You're drinking it. And he's like, this is really bad beer. It just felt amateurish. I think he's a bad actor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too, but that's what I think so funny about him. Like, that's what I think is like uniquely charming about him. Is it's the same way I feel about like Woody Allen and his films. Like, I don't think Woody Allen's a great actor, like, at all. I think that Woody Allen plays neuroses like in a really interesting way, and I think Tarantino does that too, right? Like,
fair.
And who the fuck else talks like that? Like, that's he true. Talks like he literally has not taken his ADHD meds in like weeks, and then like also may have like popped some like uppers before like coming on set.
It's probably what I talk like on Adderall. Big D?
No, you're
I don't
likable.
talk like that?
No, you're likable.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, you're definitely more likable than Tarantino.
Just for the record, everyone, I take it recreationally. I'm that guy.
Well, back to like the actual mechanics of the movie, right? So we've got this scene with Tarantino. He goes off into the shit-stained bathroom secret door thing, and you get like the first big like shootout, which is in the bar that he's just drank the piss, warm beer in. And at the start of this film, you get kind of this lead in of what El Mariachi is going to be. You get the tall tale from Buscemi. You think he's like a total badass, and you finally get to see a little piece of that in action here. And for me, I always found this scene to be super, super fun. From the guns like shooting out of a shirt to like the reveal of the guns in the case to what I feel like is the most hilarious and amazing diversion ever, which is when he doesn't like use the guy as a human shield and like walk him in front of him like in a normal movie. He like spins him like in like Latin ballroom dance, and he gets like shot up like 50 times while Antonio Banderas just, jumps behind this bar. I was grinning ear to ear still and watching it, even though I've seen this scene so many times. And I think this is where you find that commonality. Like when Tarantino and Rodriguez met, like I think this is one of the things that they bonded over is this idea of like handling violence in these extreme yet really funny yet gory ways. I think it makes sense because that's something that both of them do, where you'd see Tarantino a few years later in like Kill Bill and like what he did every time one of their heads exploded or they cut them with those samurai swords. It was ridiculous over the top violence like this.
I don't disagree on that. I do want to highlight for the purposes of analyzing this film that there is a big difference between Tarantino and Rodriguez when it comes to violence, though.
Huge.
They've definitely influenced each other, Ash. You're 100% right about that because you see the impact or sort of streams of this in Tarantino's later works. But Tarantino does a cool thing where he understands he shouldn't show things that he can't illustrate well. Two examples. When Marvin gets his head blown off in Pulp Fiction, that scene is fucking great, but you're not seeing the action happen. It's kind of obscured by the camera angle. Same with like when the cop gets his ear cut off in Reservoir Dogs. Everyone remembers that scene, but you don't really see the ear actually getting sliced off, right? The action is hidden by the camera, so you can't spot the flaws in it. Rodriguez does not have that developed yet in his skill set because the Tasco bar shootout has so many dumb parts to it. There are 2, maybe 3 behind the back shots. Like it's like the same trick being used over and over again. But the biggest mistake is using slow motion of Antonio Banderas shooting guns because he clearly does not know how to shoot guns. And I get it's to effect, it's silly, but he's kind of shaking the guns at people.
Yeah.
It's like watching him handle a live cat.
Well, don't you remember that Angelina Jolie movie where she could take the gun and like curve she would like do like a motion with her arm where they could cause the bullets to curve?
With James McAvoy.
Yes, it was some ridiculous, and they tried to use like the Matrix thing they do where the camera moves and it would follow the bullets. Yeah, he's trying to make the bullet curve, Gene. That's what he's doing.
I also really, really hate dual wielding. Like it's a pet peeve of mine, and I didn't realize it until I was watching this movie. Listen, if you're going to do a barroom shootout in Mexico, okay, instead of 2 handguns that you keep having to like reload the magazines on, an assault rifle would really do a nice job in this scenario.
But Gene, you said they're slightly different. I think they're miles apart. Tarantino, there's moments of horror. When you get violence, it's not like a barroom fight like this. It's like Butch and them tied up and watching the gimp come out of the box. It's Marvin's head exploding. It's the whole scene with the Royale with cheese where they're trying to get the case back. You feel tension. You feel afraid. Here, it's comedic. I felt like it was the old karate movies where kicks would result in, oh, and a guy would fly across the room and hit the wall. It was over the top. He takes a guy out with a ceiling fan that wasn't like an industrial ceiling fan. This was like a Home Depot $32 ceiling fan that if it hit you, you'd be like, oh, Gene, the ceiling fan hit me. That's not going to knock you out, but they're having fun with the violence. It's a different type of violence.
You forgot also it slaps the guy. The fan slaps the dude.
Yeah, I mean,
But again, but I think it does serve, if there is one benefit to this style of violence, so is it does serve to make El Mariachi, he's not a man to be feared by the audience. He's a man to be cheered. He's kind of hilariously inept in a lot of ways. It's got I don't want to say a John McClane to it, but there's some similarities.
Well, I think it's meant to be that legend, right? Like everybody always is obsessed with the legends and they don't fear the legend unless you're a bad guy. And like he's that classic thing where like he's not gonna ever hurt the right people. He's, the people that are like in the right. He's gonna hurt the people that are doing wrong. And you can't fear somebody like that.
Well, like I don't even think we know what he's capable of. We hear the story. But everybody, even his brother later, spoiler alert, says, hey, you're just a musician. We don't know how he trained up. We don't know. This might be just blind luck. He got a couple of guns, and maybe he's doing that, Gene, because he's just not good. He's like, oh, I'm going to flick my arm over here, and that's going to make the bullet. Maybe he's just an average, inept guy with a gun who's trying to survive.
An average, inept guy with a gun who walks into a bar where there are a dozen guys who kick over the cafe tables and all have automatic weapons, and he's fine.
But Gene,
just fine.
Gene, with that hair and that smile and that hint of chest hair, I would stand there like frozen. Like, what am I looking at? I would get shot because he's disarming me with that gaze. He's Puss in Boots. He's looking at me and he's like, you will all die. And I'd be like, yes, I'm going to die, Antonio. I would. And the opening now makes sense to me because I did research about this. And you mentioned that it is part of the Mexican trilogy. The Mexico trilogy. I never even knew that was a thing. I thought this was a remake of El Mariachi for the American audience. Yeah. But it turns out this was part 2. And then there was a third one that he did in 2003, which was Once Upon a Time in Mexico. So there's the 3 films. And if you were this was your first introduction like me, I don't know the backstory. So let's do it through the story of his actions. But for the people who had already seen it, and it was a different actor originally who played El Mariachi. But Gene, do you know what the plot of the third one is?
Mm-hmm.
They keep elevating the stakes.
I know it's got Johnny Depp in it, and he's blind, right? But he's an assassin or something?
Well, I'm going to read you. It's Once Upon a Time in Mexico. A failed coup attempt on the president of Mexico is stopped by our heroic action hero, El Mariachi. He sets out for revenge, an attempted murder of his wife, daughter, and discovers a connection between marauders and their deaths. So he's gone now from small town violence up the chain, and he started doing like now international and high level. But it was even a TV show. One season in Mexico. How many episodes do you think in a Mexican TV show one season?
3.
Ash?
5.
71.
Oh, wow.
Season 1 had 71 episodes.
How long were the episodes?
I think it's a full hour. I think they just kept
Was it
milking
like Bluey, where they're like 7 minutes long?
No, I think these are full. These actually full. Sony Pictures did them. And it was in 2014. It was on some channel, AXN. But I would love to see the arc of one season. We bitch and moan that we get 8 episodes of like Game of Thrones. 71.
That'll be our next project. Shat on TV does El Mariachi, the TV show. We're all going to have to learn Spanish.
Yeah.
But Big D, I didn't know about the TV show, but I did know about El Mariachi because my independent film instructor at ASU worshipped that movie. It was really one of the examples of how you can make films on a small budget that make a huge impact. Robert Rodriguez made that film for $7,000, and he used all kinds of cost-saving tricks like, natural lighting for the scenes. He didn't have like artificial lighting in most of the scenes. No reshoots. They did one take on each thing, and they even like recycled gunfire sounds. And so so a lot of the guns that they shot, you actually don't see like muzzle flash or anything. You just hear the gunfire, and so you are like, oh, it's shooting. In sports, you hear that philosophy a lot of times that some coaches are there to rebuild a team and other ones are there to take them to a championship. I think that Rodriguez was at this point very, very skilled at making a low budget film. And since then, he has made some decent big budget stuff, but you could really feel him struggling to make that transition here, Big D, as you mentioned, where El Mariachi, fantastic. Desperado, I don't think it really lived up to it. You got the additional resources, but not the additional return on those resources.
Yeah, I think the money doesn't always make things better. If you can do anything, you'll do them. Whereas if you have some constraints and you have to think more artistically and more grounded, I think it tells a better story a lot of times.
And speaking of related movies, also, this movie very closely related to Dust Till Dawn, which came out a year later. Did you, Big D, catch the Sex Machine reference in this one?
I didn't, but you got the same. I mean, half the cast is there. You got Cheech is there.
Yeah.
You got the singer from the band is there. You got also Salma Hayek's there. So is this in the same universe, Gene? You're going to tell me that they become vampires somehow?
No,
this is actually
no.
Okay.
Ash?
No.
So in the case, you've got that like dick cannon thing, the strap-on like dick cannon. That's Sex Machine's weapon in Dust Till Dawn.
Oh, I was thinking that was in the first movie because I remember seeing it somewhere.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was Sex Machine.
Boom. There you go. There you go. Well, at her bookstore, Carolina tends to El Mariachi's wounds and discovers guns in his guitar case. El Mariachi asks for help finding Bucho and goes to church to consult Buscemi. Buscemi convinces El Mariachi to abandon his quest for revenge, but then they are ambushed by a man armed with throwing knives who kills Buscemi and severely wounds El Mariachi, and happens to be Danny Trejo. Bucho's men arrive at the scene, mistake the knife thrower for El Mariachi, and kill him. They take the body back to Bucho, who realizes they've killed the wrong person, a hitman named Navajas, sent by Colombians to kill El Mariachi.
So, Gene, you mentioned when you first found this film that it was sold to you as the Mexican Quentin Tarantino movie. You weren't the only one. I think at the time we've said enough that was the big connection. And Tarantino and Rodriguez have been inseparable for many years, good friends. But you said that Rodriguez has made some good films since. I think their career paths have diverged pretty wildly. Tarantino's gone on to direct Oscar-worthy film after Oscar-worthy film. Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, Django Unchained, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, to where Rodriguez is now at the point, Gene, where he is doing kids' movies. I don't know if you've seen any of his current work. Besides destroying an already shitty Star Wars series, The Book of Boba Fett, which was unwatchable. He's supposed to shoot action, and he's terrible. His big claim to fame now is the Spy Kids trilogy. His final one here was Spy Kids Armageddon. He also did The Adventures of Shark Boy and Lava Girl in 3D, and then also the animated film Ugly Dolls. And it fits his style. It is cartoon violence. It's spinning bullets. It's the dick cannon. It's a guitar case with a rocket launcher. It's guys jumping building to building backwards, shooting and falling through the roofs. It fits kids' movies. This does not fit adult films that he started out at.
I don't know. I mean, first of all, Shark Boy and Lava Girl is a fucking great movie. Like, it's pretty great.
It is, but the
But
sequel's not so good.
I mean, you've got a lot of other stuff there, though, right? Like, you've got Planet Terror. Like, did you guys go to the movie theater when it was like the Tarantino Rodriguez like double feature? Like, that was a fucking moment, right?
Grindhouse, yep.
Like, right? Yeah, thank you, Grindhouse. You've got Machete. That is such a great fucking film. I think the problem here, I think the main problem here is that a lot of people think that movies are supposed to be one thing, and they're like the pinnacle of making film is like Oscars. And I think that's what Tarantino goes for. Tarantino believes in cinema. Tarantino believes in creating these amazing cinematic pictures. I don't think that's the purpose of Robert Rodriguez. Like, I think Robert Rodriguez is meant to be fun. He's meant to be somebody who creates these big, insane moments. I mean, The fucking Faculty, like, that's another one. Like, how have we not covered The Faculty? Like, that's a great fucking movie, right? Josh Hartnett, somebody commissioned it. But I think that's it, though. And Desperado, I think, fits so neatly in that niche that he has between like this like insane violence like Tarantino, but without the cinema aspect. It's supposed to be ridiculous. It's supposed to be fun. And I don't think it's supposed to be highbrow like Tarantino likes to be, which means that Robert Rodriguez is probably a much cooler fucking dude than Quentin Tarantino, because I think he's probably a lot more down to earth.
He also did Four Rooms, which I loved, Sin City, which I love. Big D, though, I think we might have found a director that you just don't like, because Dusk Till Dawn, I was going to mention, he also did, you gave it 3 wipes. So maybe he's just not your guy.
No, and you know what? I'm not shitting on him. I'm just saying you're comparing him to Tarantino.
Right.
Yes, he's goofy. He would be great doing like a fucking Fast and the Furious movie. You don't go in there expecting it to be some quality action. It's fun. It's goofy. They're doing ridiculous things. I'm okay. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying that putting those two names together, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right for me.
I mean, maybe he realized with this film that cinema was not his thing, and he wanted to make more kind of pop, fun movies, because some of the attempts at art in this film were just laughable. There's a scene where Mariachi is walking after the Guitar Kid, and he's like leaning on the wall and he's bleeding all over, and there's just the red being streaked. I know that Robert Rodriguez was like, yeah, this looks cool. Like, this means something. And I was just like, wow, that's really forced. You can even tell Antonio Banderas like, God damn it, do I really have to do this? Or that god-awful dream sequence where El Mariachi breaks up the hostage situation by booping a guy in the head with his guitar. Like, Antonio Banderas is doing his best to sell this shit, but this is rough. They're asking a lot of this poor man.
Well, they are, and maybe that's why he looks so fucking serious the entire film, right? Because Antonio Banderas is like an actor, has always really cracked me up, because he's like such a serious dude. Like, he takes himself seriously and he takes his role seriously. And the furrowed brow that he has just the entirety of the film is very much him. And it exists whether he's playing the guitar in a bar with his boys, or he's having sex, or he's killing people. Like, his facial expression is exactly the same, and it's okay. And let me just say this from the outset: I'm not insulting Antonio Banderas, because the man is gorgeous. He is absolutely beautiful. He looks great with the furrowed brow, but he rarely cracks a smile.
Asterisk: Antonio Banderas in Four Rooms during the Misbehaviors vignette, when he's in the little tuxedo and he like slaps the kid. Don't misbehave. It's pretty funny. But for those who followed the Mexico trilogy, they did change the actor out for El Mariachi. They had Carlos Gallardo, who was in the first one. He's Campa in this movie, so he's still in it, but he kind of got demoted from the main character. And I think it was a good choice, because Antonio Banderas is the perfect actor to play El Mariachi. I will admit, I felt a little dirty during the flashback scene, because they referenced the first movie. And so you've got El Mariachi, he's losing his lover, he's getting shot in the hand, but it's Antonio Banderas instead of Carlos Gallardo. I didn't really like that. It felt like a betrayal, but you have to advance the character. Anyway, Banderas to me, with this furrowed brow, with this always being serious, he is right for this role in every way Brandon Lee was wrong for The Crow. This is what brooding and revenge look like. Like, this is what The Crow should have been like, not whatever the fuck we got. And for those Brandon Lee lovers who thought he was just perfect in that movie, you're wrong. You're wrong. Antonio Banderas for The Crow. Just saying.
No, I would take this Antonio Banderas over smiling. The only time I remember him smiling is that meme from Assassins where he's like looking at the computer and then he goes, ah, and he leans back and smiles. Goofy, happy Antonio. No.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about how much he uses sounds instead of words in this movie. He does a lot of shh. Mm-hmm. There's like, you'll just see on the subtitles, hiss. The man hisses in a film.
But like, that's him, right? Because like when he does the Mask of Zorro, like a few years later, like he's like El Mariachi with Anthony Hopkins. Like this is just his style.
It works.
El Mariachi re-encounters the Guitar Kid and learns the boy is being used as a drug mule and that most people in town work for Bucho. El Mariachi returns to Carolina and learns that Bucho financed her bookstore as an additional front for his drug dealing. When Bucho arrives, Carolina hides El Mariachi and completes the suturing of his wounds. She gives El Mariachi a new guitar, which he plays for her before they have sex. In the morning, Bucho's men arrive and set the bookstore ablaze. Carolina and El Mariachi fight their way out of the burning building and onto a rooftop, where El Mariachi gets a clear shot at Bucho, but chooses not to kill him.
So I promise this will be the last Tarantino Rodriguez, reference I make, but I've always loved the way that Tarantino portrayed Uma Thurman's character in Kill Bill. I think he does a really, really cool thing in the way that he portrays women in those films. And I think that is very similar to his friend Robert Rodriguez here. The way that Robert Rodriguez shoots the ladies in his film has always been really, really fun. Whether it's Carolina here or Rose McGowan's character with like the crazy, gun leg in Planet Terror, or Clea Duvall in The Faculty, he writes and shoots really powerful women where they get to be normal, right? They don't have to be doctors or lawyers or something, or Barbie or something crazy like that. They're just people who are like living their lives, but they're sexy and independent and badass and like kind of feisty, and they feel very real and lived in. And Salma Hayek is very much like an absolute joy, I feel like, to watch in this movie. And y'all, she looks so good. She was so beautiful, and she's beautiful now, but I always forget like how exquisite like a young Salma Hayek was. And she's incredibly charming. She just kind of, lightens up the film with Antonio Banderas, looking so brooding throughout it. It was nice to have her there. She's beautiful.
Yeah, Robert Rodriguez, he can't shoot hand-to-hand combat. He can't shoot shootouts. He oddly can't even manage to shoot believable running. Like, even the running looked weird in this movie. But man, can he shoot sex and sexy. We got like the wall full of candles. There's licking. There's one point where Salma Hayek takes Antonio Banderas' whole fucking chin in her mouth. There's boobs. You're running spurs on each other. These like intimate laughs. Two very good looking stars. Like, this is some fire sex scenes. And that is something we normally don't get. I mean, speaking of Tequila Sunrise, this is not that movie.
No, and you forgot to mention, it's not just the candles, it's all those fucking crosses. For every candle, there's a fucking cross on the wall, and like, it's hot. And I will agree to disagree with you on the shootouts, because I think the shootouts are fun, but I will 100% agree with you on the way that he shoots sex scenes. And I remember watching this at 13 before I had sex, and I was like, wow, like, is that what it's going to be like? Like, that looks like amazing. And unfortunately, the lack of spurs and crosses and candles at, most hookups is, a bit of a disappointment for the ladies out there, but a girl can dream that one day she'll have her Desperado fantasy, because it's amazing.
But you two aren't directors, but I'm pretty sure if I gave you these two gorgeous human beings, it would be impossible to shoot this scene and have it not be sexy.
No.
How?
No.
You could just have them roll around and do abstract shots, which is what he did, and it would be sexy as hell.
I spent enough time on subreddits and Pornhub to know that there are many ways that this could have gone wrong.
See, and I think, Gene, you talk that he can't shoot action. I think he has issues with most of his composition of shots. He is way too busy. He just, any act, there's an act in the beginning where where he's lighting a cigarette. And it's like focus on the cigarette, back at the cigarette, onto the lighter, onto the other guy, back, close up on the face, halfway out in the face, back in the face, cigarette smoke. Everything is busy. He overcomplicates every single shot. There's multiple times that he uses the same shot multiple times and shows it to us, repeating the famous, like where they're walking and the explosions behind them. He layers like explosion walking, explosion walking, explosion walking. And we get to the sex scene. Half of the scene, I didn't quite know what it was. You get a couple of them where there's Salma Hayek. She's riding him. I believe, Gene, you said it was like almost reverse cowgirl. And she's leaning back. Antonio is shielding her breasts, her abs. Unbelievable. Then you get could be an elbow. It could be like the crease in someone's crotch, a knee. There's a little hair, which could have been a chin. It could have been her pelvic region. It was sexy, but it was confusing and it was busy. And it was a lot of like, I had to figure out when this shot would come in. I'd have to orientate myself and be like, okay, I think that's their back. Okay, there's the spur. That's cool. Simplify it. You got these two beautiful people. Just let us see it.
How do you feel about people putting their hands in your face during sex?
These two? Go ahead. Do whatever you want.
It's weird because I was watching it on film and I'm like, oh, that's kind of hot. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, would I be annoyed if I'm just, going to town and all of a sudden there's just like I'm getting fish hooked or someone's like pushing my face?
No, these are two animals. This is like primal. This is sweaty El Mariachi sex.
I think it's Robert Rodriguez off camera, right? Like, I would have loved to have heard his direction because this is like pre-intimacy coordinator.
Yeah, there was no
intimacy coordinator here. He's like, suck his chin.
Yes, there was no merkin. There was no like safety flesh-colored underwear. No. You know this was going on.
Yeah. And also now I know what Antonio Banderas' feet look like. And thanks to jiu-jitsu, I don't care.
Good for you.
Angry about their failure to kill El Mariachi, Bucho instructs his men to kill anyone in town they don't recognize. To set an example, he randomly shoots one man and then fires at the others. Realizing that Bucho will never stop hunting him, El Mariachi contacts his friends Campa and Kino for assistance. The trio meet up on the edge of town and encounter Bucho's henchmen. A huge firefight ensues, and most of Bucho's men, along with Campa and Kino, are killed. El Mariachi discovers the guitar-playing boy has been wounded in the crossfire and rushes him to a hospital. So at this point in the movie, I'm trying to put myself in El Mariachi's boots. Like, this is a story that is driven by revenge. The love of your life was killed. You lost your fret hand and you just want to get back at the man who made all that happen. That sucks, right? But you killed the guy that actually killed the love of your life and shot you. And you've killed like dozens of other guys. Now you're banging Salma Hayek in her prime. She's like 27 years old, right? Dude, take the W. Take the fucking W. Pack your bags. Get the hell out of Dodge. She doesn't have her bookstore anymore. You have no reason to stay in town. Just go.
100%. Buscemi, his death alone seems like it was going to get him to correct course. Hey, eye for an eye. Where's it going to leave us? He was like a brother to him, I said. It's going to go nowhere. Coco gets shot on the corner. Coco loses his guitar. He goes to the hospital. Don't you feel bad for Coco? It's really getting you upset. You know, Coco's not out there going to go get to meet his grandfather across the magic bridge of pedals. Come on. And then he gets his two buddies to come out and gets them killed as well. Take the W.
I can't really say it's his fault on his friends. I think they oversold their abilities a little bit. And I'm going to give the movie the benefit of the doubt on Campa and Kino. Okay. Maybe, like you said, these guys don't get training. Maybe they're just musicians who are like, hey, we got our hands on some weapons. We're going to fuck some shit up. Maybe they weren't expecting Bucho to have like a whole platoon of gunmen. They're like, oh, maybe it's going to be 4 or 5 dudes. But these guys, they build them up so much. It's like, I got to call my friends. And he calls them up. They're like, we'll be there. And they show up, you know, boots crunching in the gravel. Like, let's go. One has a rocket launcher guitar case. The other one has dual machine gun guitar cases. They show up, the bad guys show up, and then they stand in the middle of the street. No cover. They are firing wildly. They are racking up like 1 kill per 100 rounds. I think out of like 4 rockets, we might have seen like 3 dudes get injured. El Mariachi, meanwhile, he's got like 2 handguns. He's put on a whole fucking massacre. What is going on with these guys?
I don't know. I feel badly for him, though, because I feel like this is my problem. is like, I would want to help. And like, if, I got a cool guitar case, I'd want to like blow some shit up, but I wouldn't be very good at it. I could have like the baddest ass weapon around and I would wind up like either standing there, like not understanding how to use it, or I would just get like shot immediately and fall on the ground. And so I do feel for them, but I also think that it's pointless to even have them there. Like, I don't get Rodriguez's decision to be like, you know what? Those two dudes playing with him in the opening scene, let's make him get some guns and come and join him, in like the culminating fight. Because really, like, that he doesn't, you could feel like in this scene that Rodriguez didn't want to take away from, El Mariachi's glory, where he's like kicking ass alone. So just like let him kick ass alone and leave his friends on the side, like playing like a jaunty little tune while he does it.
Gene, I love it. Maybe this was like the Three Amigos. These dudes showed up thinking they were going to be playing for El Guapo. Maybe it was Lucky, Ned, and Dusty. He didn't let him know he was going to come out here.
Infamous, that means more than famous.
Yes. Oh, you got a gig for us? Okay, we'll come out. And they come out there, and these dudes get gunned down. And Gene, you said it's not his fault his buddy dies. The rocket guy, he shoots a rocket up in the air, comes down, hits him. Then Antonio tells the other guy, cover yourself. And they go back to back. They're going to stand their ground, only to immediately run away to save Coco, who got shot in the corner. His friend got shot because he abandoned him. And the friend even looked at him like, where'd you go?
Ha, real bullets. Yeah, no, dude, and then he takes the guitar kid to the hospital. He's like, oh, we got to get you to the hospital. Compa is like lying in the street shot. He's like, hey, dude, are you okay? Like, maybe we should take you to the hospital too. No, fuck him. Just the kid gets help.
No, this felt more and more like the Three Amigos. And I felt bad for Bucho. He doing his best. He's trying to be a good drug kingpin. He's trying to keep it together, and his henchmen are as bad as El Guapos. They keep letting him down. This is the R-rated version of Do You Have a Plethora of Piñatas? He's taking care of the locals. He gives the bride money. He's supporting this groundbreaking business, a female-owned business. A coffee shop and bookstore combo. What drug kingpin would do that? But his henchmen are out there like, I don't know the phone in your car number. You don't know your boss's phone car number.
It's a new car.
Dude, later on, the best part that made me laugh is he's tired of his guys. His group of like 20, they can't go into this small town and find the only stranger in town and kill him. So then Bucho says, guys, I'll forgive you. You haven't been able to find the stranger. But why couldn't you get him when I told you where it was? So he calls one of the guys and he says, hey, you, everybody move around. I haven't seen that guy before. Boom, shoots him. They all look still puzzled. He goes, oh, guess what? I haven't seen all of you before. They all finally get it and run. This dude deserved better.
You said he shoots a guy. It's not just a guy. It's Shrug. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie, he's the coolest guy in the gang. He has this incredible mustache, like this proper cowboy hat, and he just seems like the best one to hang out with. He's very chill. Yeah, he doesn't know the number to the car, but it's a new car. Like, yeah, how was he supposed to know that? He's just being honest. I don't know. I wouldn't have shot him. I think he's the coolest guy in the gang.
Underachiever. He needed better. He needed a new number 2 man to come up.
He was like cool uncle though.
A drug kingpin doesn't want an uncle. He wants somebody to go find El Mariachi. That's it. Go find him. It's
John
simple.
Candy. El Mariachi and Carolina travel to Bucho's compound, where it is revealed that Bucho is El Mariachi's older brother, Cesar. Bucho offers to release El Mariachi if he allows Bucho to kill Carolina. El Mariachi kills his brother, then shoots the remaining henchmen. Carolina and El Mariachi visit the boy in the hospital, and El Mariachi leaves alone. Carolina catches up to him on the road and picks him up, with El Mariachi initially leaving his weapons on the side of the road, but the two shortly return and pick up the guitar case full of guns just to be safe. So we talked about this movie being about revenge, and the quest for El Mariachi is to find Bucho. He's pumping people for information. He's going bar to bar. He spends half the movie searching for Bucho. And you get the impression that he is relentlessly searching for any piece of information to take down this villain. He's using Steve Buscemi to read bar rooms, and Bucho just keeps eluding him. You're in a small town. There is a massive compound. It's got walls like fucking Jurassic Park. They could be hiding an elephant in there. Did you think maybe to look for the drug dealer compound nearby. Follow any of the gang's cars. They're doing patrols. Just follow them to where the fuck they're going. And also, Carolina seems to know where Bucho lives. She waits until the end to tell him. Better yet, you know he likes Carolina and he's searching for you. Could you maybe, I don't know, set a trap for Bucho? This is just incompetence.
See, but I think maybe this is much like the story in the beginning. There's this myth. Maybe Bucho just sucks. Maybe he's really not a major drug lord. Maybe he just had a farm. We're assuming maybe he was subsidizing a farm with the little coca leaves, right? He gives the kid the little bag. The kid delivers it. He stores some in the books. Maybe he's not a bigwig. Because if you're going to be a major drug lord, the key is people have to be in fear of you. So then the local neighborhoods protect you. And then they'll keep you in business. This is like Fallon in Judgment Night, where he's supposed to be this big, kingpin. Fucking 3 people work for him. Nobody in the town knows him. That's what this, and it's proof, Gene, in the end. I'm expecting we're going to get a raid on a compound. I'm thinking Tango and Cash with the monster truck coming over the wall, or I'm thinking about maybe Scarface, where they're going to go in there guns a-blazing, or even Roadhouse, trying to take down the mansion with the pool party with all the karate kicking, shark tooth guys there fighting. We get nothing. They open the gate. Moore, his group lets him down. He gets shot straight in front of all of his men armed. So I think really, maybe they were just disgruntled brothers. He had started growing a little bit of drugs, was a farmer, wasn't a big drug kingpin, and El Mariachi has a head injury, and he has fabricated all of this backstory.
I like his theory because you also see Bucho on the phone with clearly higher ups who are, and he's like, no, I got it under control. It's totally cool. This is his first try at this, and he's really bad at it.
Failing completely.
He is.
Poor
it's
guy.
Sweet.
Well, now's the time.
Sweet.
And
Well, now's the time
he does his best.
He does.
He tries really hard.
I wanted him to succeed.
But he's in a small town. He doesn't know any better. He does great for the size town he's in. It's cute.
Now's the time in the podcast we give our wipe score. Now's the time in the podcast we give our Shat score for Desperado. Our wipe score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get off your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie. It's sitting down for a delicious mug of piss-warm chongo. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster of a film. It is walking into a Mexican bar for a cocktail, only to find it full of bloody, bullet-ridden bodies. I'll go first. It's 2 wipes for me. I hate to say it, but Robert Rodriguez just does not have it in this movie. I studied El Mariachi, the first film in the Mexico trilogy. I was really impressed with Rodriguez's creativity and resourcefulness in that film. But a truly great director, in my humble opinion, gets better when you give them access to a huge budget and stars. And speaking of those stars, they kept this movie afloat. That's why it's still getting an above average score. Hayek, Banderas charmed the hell out of me. Big D mentioned Cheech in this as well. Steve Buscemi, everyone putting in work. But the movie focused too much on its weaknesses instead of intelligently omitting them. I think it could have benefited from better editing, honestly. So I'm coming in at 2 wipes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to be more generous. I still think this movie is an absolute blast. If our question is, does the movie still hold up? For me, it does in a lot of ways. It screams by. It goes so quickly. I think it's super sexy. I think it's fun. I think that, yes, I agree with you that Rodriguez was a little shaky on this one, but there was something I found really charming about how raw it was in a really fun way. And I think what Rodriguez does very well is even with big budgets, he makes it still feel like it's a low budget film. And when that is done right, when it's done intentionally, I think it can be a blast. And he doesn't quite hit that mark here. He does in some of his other stuff that he would do later. I still think it's well above average, especially for the type of movie that it is. So I'm going to be a little more generous and say it's 1.5.
Gene, I'm gonna join you in the 2 wipe. I think the cast also keeps it afloat, and all the henchmen are great. Mustache guy, everybody in the town is fun. But as far as a director, I think he was the biggest problem. I thought every scene was overly complicated. The 3rd act, I thought, dragged. Once they had sex, it really struggled to get to the finish line. And then there was, oh, you're my brother. No real kind of conclusion. I thought it was more style over substance. I think it's 2 wipes. It wasn't as good as I remembered, but fun. I had more fun on the podcast than watching this.
I think you just added to my argument there too, where it's Oh no, Bucho's my brother, but I'm banging Carolina. I should get out of town.
And
Directed
also,
by
you have
Robert
a
Rodriguez.
brother.
Yeah. Also, you have a brother. Congratulations.
Yeah, it could be a happy ending.
You know,
They could have a
tried.
reconciliation. It would be great.
I mean, they could have hugged.
Crack a couple Modelo's.
Yeah.
Cold ones.
Live Moss.
You show in the end that you've overcome your problems.
Yeah.
Peace can prevail. It would have been, and then you know what?
They could have sold drugs together.
Jesus, Bucho's already investing. He's in economic development. Together, they could lift the whole town up. They could build industry.
Open a music venue.
Open a fine arts program for the local schools.
Yes, a chain of South American coffee like Starbucks. This could have been the early Starbucks and bookstore.
Yeah, because when you think about it, they do drug dealing in this town, but no one seems to be addicted to drugs in this town. It's more like an economic driver, and they sell to maybe other people.
Their number one export.
They're exporters.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So I think the 1.83 wipe score is very just. That makes it slightly better, and I mean slightly, than First Blood, Detroit Rock City, and Purple Rain. Slightly worse than I'm Gonna Get You Sucker Friday, Drop Dead Gorgeous, and Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I hope you're happy out there. I'm going to get you sucker fans.
All two of them.
The shootouts were better. I'm going to get you sucker, I mean.
Oh.
Anyway. Well, Rachel, I hope you're happy with that score, and we appreciate all the commissions. Keep them coming. Big D, this week we have a voicemail that we've been holding on to until the whole crew is back together, and it comes from Katie from Chicago.
Hey, Shat Crew. This is Katie from Chicago, Illinois, or the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. Longtime listener. I've been listening ever since you guys did Game of Thrones, one of the final seasons, I forget which one, back in 2017, and then I stumbled upon Shat the movies and just fell in love. You guys are freaking hilarious. You're a really great podcast to listen to when I'm up late nights with my baby. It just makes the time go by a lot faster when I'm dog tired at the end of the day and need something to entertain myself in the pitch black darkness of my child's nursery. I did want to address something, Big D. I just recently listened to History of the World Part 1, which was very entertaining, as always. So not to be critical, but Big D, you were talking about how Mel Brooks, if he would ever have the courage to do some comedy regarding the Holocaust because he was Jewish. Sorry to touch such a touchy subject, but I was wondering if you had ever seen his amazing 1967 masterpiece, The Producers, because that's basically all he does in that movie, producing the musical Springtime for Hitler. And that happened before A History of the World, so maybe he felt like he didn't want to hit that again so quickly. But yes, I just want to make sure that you did know that he did in fact do that already in The Producers, which is a hilarious film. And if you haven't seen it, I suggest that you do, even though it's outside the decades for the Shat Pod being in the 60s. But love you guys. Big D, you are my fave. And Gene, you're pretty cool too. And I wish you all just the best of luck with the podcast going forward. Haven't done any commissions yet, but I'm seriously considering a few. So I'll be in touch, and you guys take care.
So, Katie, I've not seen it. I'm looking here at the poster. I've heard of it. I don't know why I'm so averse to like Mel Brooks. I don't know why I hate him so much. It doesn't make logical sense.
It's because he's Jewish?
No, I was in a Jewish fraternity. I have no problem with my Jewish brother.
Some of my best friends are black people.
I was part of the largest Jewish fraternity. Okay, if I had an issue with the Jewish people, I wouldn't have done that. It wasn't like one Jewish friend. They were all Jewish.
In your defense, I actually, and this is why we always have to remind everyone that we are just people who happen to watch movies and really enjoy each other's company, like doing the podcast together and really enjoy interacting with the audience. But we are by no means film historians or anything like that. I knew that there was the 2005 Producers, the Matthew Broderick one, Will Ferrell. I did not know that there was a 1967 one. So in Big D's defense, I also was not aware of it. But I did know Hitler on Ice from History of the World.
Also, Gene, I'm going to do a quick 180 here on one of my long-standing anti-Holocaust film reviews. On the airplane coming back from Vegas, I watched Zone of Interest.
Okay.
I think I would be open to Schindler's List. if somebody were interested.
Zone of Interest is fascinating.
Yeah.
How'd you watch that on a plane, though? The whole point of that is to have good sound.
Well, maybe then I did miss a little portion of it because I had the standard Delta earplugs.
After being at a fucking...
No, it was on the way. It was on the way. I was
on the
lucky.
way there. Okay.
Yes,
After being at a music festival as well, so you really...
No, it was on the way. So maybe there were moments, obviously, the sound that it would like cut out, and I thought maybe it was something with the in-flight entertainment. But what I saw enough and could actually comprehend, it was very, very thought-provoking.
It's very powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, although I don't know if it fits this pod. Like, I don't know if we can do Shat scores on Schindler's List.
I mean, I think that was Big D's point originally. Was like, how do you... Same with like doing...
The Passion of the Christ.
That's not what I was thinking of, but that as well.
like Saving Private Ryan was another one I thought that was a little...
Oh
difficult.
no, that one's hee-haw corny though compared to...
That's not about genocide, right? Like I feel like Hotel Rwanda, Schindler's List. Like there's some that like I think it's like really hard to give a Shat score on.
Yeah. Well, on that happy note, Big D, what do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, Los Angeles teenager Richie Valens becomes an overnight rock and roll sensation in 1958, thanks to the love ballad called Donna that he wrote for his girlfriend, whose parents didn't want her to date a Latino boy. But as his star rises, Valens has conflicts with a jealous brother and becomes haunted by a reoccurring nightmare of a plane crash just as he begins his first national tour alongside Buddy Holly. Commissioned by Mark C., came out in 1987. And these movies come together with similar themes. We got another musician. It's
Los Lobos in the soundtrack.
Yeah, they're backback-to-back films.
Mexican-American directors.
What are the chances?
I mean, you made the schedule, so I don't know.
No, it was meant to happen.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark, for commissioning the upcoming movie. Thank you, Rachel, for commissioning Desperado. Thank you to all the commissioners who make this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. You can leave a voicemail by going to shatpod.com and using the SpeakPipe feature on any device. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all information on our website, shatpod.com/TV, wherever our fine podcasts we found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe, and if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-hosts, Ash and Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next time for the following movie.
In 1957, Ricardo Valenzuela had his family, his talent, and a dream.
Rock and roll.
Come on, baby, just rock.
Look at my Richie. He's shining like a star.
I really dig your music, and I'd like to record it.
Oh, Richie, I'm so happy.
By 17,
Your professional name? Richie Valens.
he was a star.
I love you, Donna. You know, I'm still gonna marry you one of these days.
With 3 hits on the charts.
Holly is lining up a plane to fly us on to Fargo tonight. Hey, come on, let's go!
But one tragic night in 1959, his star fell.
Not Richie!
Richie!
This summer, it rises again. Columbia Pictures presents La Bamba. The legend of Richie Valens. A true story. La Bamba.